The Warhammer 40k universe is one of those franchises that I have kept on promising myself to get into and just never made the dive. Perhaps it was because I knew that I would be practically obsessed with it, or because I hardly knew about any decent action games for it. Knowing that it was originally a tabletop strategy game, I had very little hope to dive into the series in the way that I was accustomed to. Then I saw a little game called Dawn of War. Friends told me it was good, and that I should try it. I never touched it. I was then told about Dawn of War 2 sometime later, and actually bought the Dawn of War 2 collection on Steam on a crazy good sale. After playing it, I have to say that it is awesome. I'm not even a strategy guy. I usually stick with first-person shooters and third-person action games. To explain what it is, Dawn of War 2 is a squad-based strategy game. Instead of controlling an army like in Dawn of War 1, you're controlling one squad. The main point of the game is to take on missions of varying importance, kill anyone who happens to not be a human being that stands in your way, and then complete whatever objective you are tasked with. This is quite a package to unwrap, so let's get leveled up, put on our power armor, and kill some Xenos. The story in Dawn of War 2 is not too difficult to understand. In the grim darkness of the future, there is only war. To put it simply, fun is banned, happiness is not allowed, and every woman, man, and child is expected to work, train, and or fight in order to protect the Imperium of Man. If you need more of an explanation, then go pull up a 2-hour-long YouTube video on the matter. That is probably the most accessible way to learn about the lore. You specifically are going to be playing as groups of the Blood Raven Space Marines, and these guys are no joke. These superhuman men are what compose one of the main elite fighting forces of the Imperium. These guys are genetically engineered to be bigger, tougher, and more powerful than any normal human being alive. They stand 8 feet tall, wear armor that belongs on a tank, and uses weapons that are meant to take down anything. Every single one needs an extra heart and lung just to support their massive bodies. When you look at the kind of things that you are fighting in this game, you can see why these guys are necessary. You are a new Space Marine Force Commander who is known for making calculated decisions even in desperate scenarios. You and your squads are tasked with reclaiming worlds, assets, and driving back the Xenos, who at first compose as the Orcs and the Eldar. Then the Tyranids join in the fight, whose sole purpose is to consume everything on a planet. To the avid 40k fan, this is just Monday. But to any newcomer, this is going to look pretty bad. But it doesn't mean that you can't do anything to stop it. As you travel from planet to planet completing main missions, you will be tasked to either kill a boss or retrieve assets. Each one of these main story missions will further the plot and get more understanding as to what else can be done to stop the Tyranids, especially since they become the main threat after a couple of hours into the game. The main thing that you're going to be paying attention to here, though, is the voice acting. My goodness, does this game have some talent. So many great voices with terrific writing to boot. Now, don't get me wrong here. The story is not something to dive super deep into, like I have already mentioned. It is pretty standard and easy to understand. But the characters, however, is another matter entirely. Each character has a personality and a purpose. You'll grow to like each squad as time goes on, especially since their lines are just written so well. Whenever I did see a character go down, I did actually care and wanted to save them. There are also times when characters will reference events that you have no idea about. But not to worry, those references will not pull you from knowing what is going on. As much as I love being in the thick of a fight in a game that looks like this, I've come to learn as to why this squad RTS does work. It makes it to where your decisions in strategy and combat matter. Where you want your men to go, they go. If you tell them to go to a position and stay put, you bet your bottom that they are going to stay there until you say otherwise. This game is not about just being brutal. It's also about making proper decisions during skirmishes to where you outwit your opponent with that brutal power. The kind of arsenal that your men are going to be using is of wide variety and abundance. You got the signature bolters, miniature cannons that basically launch armor-piercing rounds that explode on hard impact, and whose bullets, if you can call them that, are the size of Pepsi cans. The classic chainswords, who need no introductions, only an entrance, all the way down to plasma rifles and power hammers. Not all weapons are able to be equipped to every squad member, however. Each squad member has their specialties. For example, The Force Commander is mainly about melee weapons and pistols. Avitus is about the big guns. Cyrus, sniper rifles, and explosives. You get the idea. You have to allocate your resources to where they are best to be used. Some weapons are a bit more universal than others, like bolters. Some will only go to specific characters, like Cyrus with sniper rifles. As you level up and go through the campaign, you will be swapping equipment out regularly in order to keep your stats up and to make sure that your squad is well armed for whatever comes at you. The next piece of the puzzle is, of course, how the battles and gameplay works. The main thing to understand, again, is that this is a strategy game at heart. And it does very well to keep on reminding you of that because you have to use your characters very wisely. As you move your squad through the map that you are dropped into, you will notice that your mouse cursor will mark the terrain with white, yellow, and green dots. This represents how well the spot is covered for the squad member moving there. White being no cover at all, to green being the best kind. Yellow cover will reduce range damage intake by around, I'd say 10%. And green reduces it by around 50% or nullifies it almost completely. So approaching certain structures while advancing on the enemy is actually important, especially if you don't want your men dying on you too quickly. That doesn't mean that those structures cannot be destroyed, so keep an eye out for explosives. When it comes to combat, it gets a little more complicated. You basically select a unit that you want to perform an action with and then right-click the guy that needs their innards ripped out. Every unit has their own quirks and special moves. Avitus needs time to set up their weapons. The Force Commander can charge at the enemy and inspire their squad. Tarkus can redirect damage to himself and reduce damage. Each unit has their uses, and it is up to you on how you want to advance through each stage of the game. Take note also that, again, this is a real-time strategy game. You cannot pause the game to make a live decision. You have to make your decisions in real time. When I first started the game, I did get a little overwhelmed and had to learn to keep my cool and direct my squad mates appropriately while also popping their special abilities to give them more of a fighting chance. As you go through the main campaign, you will also run into side missions that can actually expire on you if you wait too long to complete them. These missions are actually important because they grant you great pieces of gear and help you keep your footing on planet so that way you don't lose certain bonuses. Performing certain missions also affect the Tyranid's stats in engagements. The lower the infestation level is, the easier they are to kill. As your characters level up, they gain access to better pieces of equipment and items. These better pieces of equipment can give you bonuses that can range from stat bonuses, special abilities, or buffing your allies. You will eventually gain access to a special kind of power armor called Terminator armor. It makes a single squad member tougher, faster, and able to equip better weapons. You will also get access to a dreadnought that you can custom fit for either melee combat or range combat. I recommend melee. Trust me on that. It will become apparent that certain strategies and squad compositions are better than others. Whenever I tried to go for a stealthy hit-and-run kind of strategy, it just didn't work for me. But when I made sure that I had the Dreadnought and the Force Commander on melee duty, while I had Avitus and Tarkus on range support, I just steamrolled through any infantry that I came across. Vehicles didn't even stand a chance. Once I had Avitus and Tarkus in Terminator armor, I was practically unstoppable until I encountered greater demons and gods that needed to be killed. But those are supposed to be tough to deal with. The other thing that should definitely be touched on for this game is the expansion packs that you can get with it. I was doubly sure to play through the Chaos Rising expansion before writing this review. To say the least, changes were made. Some things have even evolved. In Chaos Rising, the Tyranids have fled the scene and are no longer the main threat. You come across the forces of Chaos and have to fight Chaos Marines and Heretics. These guys' main goal is to destroy the Imperium of Man and convert as many people as possible to the ways of Chaos. Think crazy cults, but someone decided to give them all power armor and weapons that Space Marines use. Yeah, not fun. These guys mean business, and they have some pretty wacky abilities. Fortunately, if you have already completed the main campaign in Dawn of War 2, then good news. You can actually import your stats and equipment over to your campaign in Chaos Rising. Some things will be changed around for the sake of the story, but not to worry, it all goes back to normal pretty quickly. When it comes to the emphasis of choice, that is further emphasized in Chaos Rising. In the intro of the expansion, as you fight the forces of Chaos, you and your squad get a slight touch of corruption. This is represented as a separate XP bar in each character's profile. The more cat-like things you do, the more corrupted you and your squad become. There are also corrupted weapons and armor that can be used. Using these weapons and armor pieces can, you guessed it, make you further corrupted. How corrupted you are determines on which of the 4 endings you get. It doesn't really affect combat too much. It does, however, change how some abilities work. Ignoring/completing certain objectives or approaching missions in a certain way can increase your corruption or decrease it. Another thing that they do change is the locations that you will be exploring. You get to explore an ice planet and a space hulk. So all in all, after beating the expansion and managing to get the best ending on my first try, I have to say that it was pretty dang good. It deserves the praise that it has achieved and is hell of a lot of fun.
Here you come, my good little prey.
After playing through the base game and getting through Chaos Rising, I have to say that this is a great game to get into and has shown me that strategy games like this can be tremendous fun. I spent at least 3 nights trying to get through all of this content. I've put in collectively around 40 hours into this game, and I have enjoyed every moment of it. Now, take note, I did not touch on the co-op elements of the game since I didn't know anyone who owned the game and was willing to play it with me. To the friends that did recommend this to me back in college, you were right, I was wrong. I didn't really have time to get through the Retribution expansion, so I will probably touch base on that in a separate video. If you see this game on a sale, I highly suggest that you buy it. Even at base price, it is worth the experience. You can find it exclusively for PC via disc or electronic download. I say that the easiest way to get it is on Steam. I hope you all have an awesome holiday and hope to see you in another video soon.